Hello and welcome to another tutorial video. We are going to be discussing the private equity resume here and going over some tactics, tips, and templates that you can use to craft your own private equity resume. Now, before we get fully into this, I want to mention that this is a video version of an article on mergers and acquisitions. The article is mergersandacquisitions.com/private-equity-resume, or just Google private equity resume and mergers and acquisitions and you'll find it. We're going to point out here a few things on the resume templates provided there that are difficult or more difficult to illustrate in text, but you can get all the templates we're using and the full written instructions by going to this link. Now, your first reaction to this topic may be, wait a minute, private equity resumes, haven't you covered this before? Isn't this an old topic? And the answer is yes, but what's different here is that the private equity recruiting process has changed and become super accelerated, similar to investment banking recruiting at the university level. For example, at the bulge bracket and elite boutique banks, the on-cycle recruiting process for private equity might start a month or even a few weeks after you've started working full-time. As a result, you are going to have to spin very heavily to turn your pitches, your potential deals, and your ongoing projects into real deals that you can list on your resume. And if you can't come up with anything at all from your current role and even from previous internships, then you're probably just going to have to wait for more deal experience and recruit in a later cycle, in 6 months or 12 months or some later date from now, and just accept the fact that you'll have to stay in investment banking for a bit longer. Now, in this tutorial, we'll cover an investment banking template and then a consulting template. So private equity resumes for someone with a banking background and then someone with a consulting background. There are some points that apply to both of these and then a few points that are a little bit different. So let's go through the main points that apply to all private equity resumes now. First off, it should always be one page only with 3 main sections: professional experience or work experience at the top, then education, then skills and interests. And if you look at our templates, you can see that we follow that: professional experience, education, and then skills and interests at the bottom. And we have those 3 main sections, and we only have 1 page here. Technically, there are 2 pages, but the second one is just about the coaching and resume editing services that we offer. Work experience should be most of your resume. We'd say probably 80% of the total, with your current full-time role in banking, consulting, or something else occupying about 50% of the total space. And again, if we look at our resumes, we can see this. Professional experience, zooming out a little bit, you can see definitely occupies the bulk of this resume, and this person's specific current role easily occupies 50%, maybe even 60% of this resume. In terms of font faces, sizes, and margins, we like 3/4 of an inch for the margins on each side. We like to use size 10, 11, or 12 font. We're using 11 font here, and something like Times New Roman, Arial, Calibri, Georgia, any of those would work. You just have to be consistent with what you're doing. So if you go to the Layout tab in Word and you go to Margins, and then you go to Custom Margins, you can see in these templates, for example, we have 3/4 of an inch here on the left, right, top, and bottom. This is about 1.91 centimeters if you're in the metric system. And then finally, for your main deal experience, you want to list a summary bullet and then specific deals, clients, or engagements. So describe your overall deals and daily tasks, your performance indicators such as your ranking in the class, if that's available, if you've been on the job for at least a year, for example, and then select 2 to 3 deals, clients, or projects to write about. And once again, you can see that in our resume template here. We have a summary sentence with the deals and his current status in the beginning, and then he chooses to write about 1 sell-side M&A deal, 1 buy-side M&A deal, and then 1 debt issuance deal. Let's go into some more detail on this resume for investment banking candidates now. Then we'll talk about a few points to keep in mind if you're coming in from consulting or another background, and then we'll wrap things up. So if you're coming in from a large bank, a bulge bracket, or an elite boutique bank, your resume is mostly irrelevant for winning interviews in the on-cycle process because headhunters completely dominate it. They will determine who you speak to, your discussions with the headhunters, and how well you do there, plus your background will determine where you actually win interviews. But your resume is still important because you will still have to submit something, and also because it forces you to list specific deals and to plan out your discussions and your presentations of those deals and the types of questions that you can answer about them in interviews. So writing your resume really means selecting your deal experience and then practicing your discussions of it. Ideally, you will list between 2 and 3 deals. 1 deal looks a little bit awkward, and if you list 4, 5, or 10 deals, it's going to be impossible to remember all the details. Now, to find your deal experience, the best option, of course, is that if you actually have a closed or announced deal, you will list that. If you don't, you could list a canceled or ongoing deal, so maybe something that is just kicked off, but which hasn't really progressed that far yet, or maybe something that has progressed to the middle stages but isn't close to ending yet. You could also pick something like a client service engagement. Sometimes companies hire your bank just to look at potential acquisitions or to look at partnerships or JV deals or other things like that. If you don't have any of those, you could look at pitches for potential deals. So maybe an IPO pitch or an M&A pitch or a leveraged buyout pitch. As long as you do something at least a little bit technical related to modeling or analysis, you can probably list a pitch. And then finally, if you really have nothing from any of those, you can go to deals from your previous internships and potentially use those. One trick is that if you interned at your current bank and then you accepted a full-time offer there, you can combine the internship and the full-time role into one entry. And we're actually using a very similar approach in this resume. If you look closely at the dates, you can see that he lists two sets of dates here, one for the summer internship and then one for the full-time role because we're combining the experience. We don't know what the mix of deals from the internship versus the full-time role is, but it's likely that at least one, maybe even two of these deals, or maybe even three of these deals, all three of them, are actually from the internship. So that's one trick you can use to get around the earliness of the recruiting process and the challenges it creates. If you somehow have too many deals, maybe you've been working for a year or 2 years and you've worked on 12 deals, then you want to prioritize by size. $1 billion deal is better than a $100 million deal, and a $100 million deal is better than a $10 million deal, all else being equal. And after size, prioritize by your individual contributions to the deal process. So if you found a mistake that affected the company's presentation, or you thought of new buyers or sellers, or you thought of new ways to present the information to attract more interest, all those affect the deal process and potentially the price and other terms and are good to list versus just describing the standard tasks that any analyst would complete. To write about your deal experience, before writing anything, you should review the deliverables from your 2 to 3 deals first, including models, presentations, emails, buyer and seller logs, and note the following key points. First, the transaction rationale. Why did the buyer or seller want to do the deal or raise capital? What were the approximate financial metrics? You don't need 5,000 numbers, but keep in mind the enterprise value or market cap, the revenue, the EBITDA, the margins, the revenue growth, maybe 3 to 5 or so key metrics like that. Then there are the key challenges. So what were the biggest stumbling blocks or difficulties in this deal? Was it agreeing on the price? Was it getting the financing in place? Was it answering specific objections from investors about certain aspects of the company's business? Whatever it was, figure it out and then be able to write about your contributions in relation to those key challenges or others. For example, how did you move the deal forward? Did you find something that made the lives of the senior banks easier? Did you uncover something that helped management present its case more effectively? Did you think of a wider set of potential investors? Think about things like that. And then finally, think about your opinion of the deal. If you were the buyer, would you have done it? If you were the seller, would you have accepted it? Why or why not? Then once you have those figured out and you have notes about each deal, you can write about all those points, except for the last one. Don't write about your opinion of the deal on your resume. Save that for actual in-person discussions. It's a little bit dangerous to even get into that on your resume, but a few other tips for writing about your deal experience include italicize each deal's name with the deal type and approximate amount. Use round numbers if possible. So if the deal has not yet been announced, don't list a purchase price of $1,437,000,000. Round it to 1.5 billion as we're doing here. You can also see that we're italicizing this as I suggested. You can also see that we're not listing the actual company names. We're just listing regional airline and larger airline, which ties into my next point. Use company descriptions, not real company names, unless of course you actually have closed or announced deals. Use lingo and buzzwords like EBITDA, enterprise value, DCF. Increasingly, computers are scanning resumes, so this will help there, but it'll also help with people who look at your resume and can tell that it's relevant immediately. And of course, you can tell that we're using things like NPV and operating scenarios and public comps, precedent transactions, and DCF and other language like this throughout. Finally, we recommend using 2 to 3 bullets for each deal in the specifics and results format. So here, for example, The first bullet under the first deal, we worked with the client CFO and finance team to build a 3-statement operating model, and then the result was that we discovered and fixed an error in the company's expense data that led to incorrect estimates for the NPV of new routes. So we made a significant impact, maybe not on the deal as a whole, but at least on the company's presentation and internal process here. One final word of caution here is that you should not be too aggressive with your claims of results or deal contributions. I've seen a lot of people get into trouble with this over the years. It's fine to spin pitches into potential deals because there is some truth to that. Some pitches do become deals, other pitches don't, but anything could happen. And as long as you do some valuation or modeling work, pretty much anything works with this type of spin. But if you get very aggressive and you say that you negotiated something in the deal, or you increased or reduced the purchase price, or you won a new investor who decided to put in $50 million or something like that, you are going to get a lot of questions about it because that's highly unusual for analysts. It's not impossible. At some smaller banks especially, it could happen, but it's highly unusual. And you really need to be able to back up whatever you say or whatever you claim in interviews. My recommendation is to stick to more modest contributions, like finding mistakes in the company's financials, thinking about new buyers or sellers and suggesting them, finding information or analysis that addressed a key concern of one buyer or investor, or things like that. Let's now go into the private equity resume for other roles, including consulting. Now, the truth is that for any deal-based role, a smaller bank, corporate development, a mezzanine fund, another private equity firm, real estate firms, you can pretty much use the same template that we had here for investment banking because in all those fields, you work on deals, either on the buy side, thinking about whether or not to do deals and making decisions, or on the sell side, marketing companies and deals to potential investors. So nothing is really different. The main difference is that you should have more real deal experience to write about, and you're not going to need to rely on spinning pitches or internship deals or anything like that quite as much. Consulting is trickier because most client engagements there tend to focus on operations, not M&A deals, not capital raises, and not finance. One strategy is to spin operational projects by linking them to financial metrics or to the company's share price, to investor reactions to the strategy or deal or other announcement or something like that. Another strategy is to pick projects with direct relevancy, like market sizing and due diligence, M&A integration, expansions or add-ons, or things like that. If we go to the consulting resume template, we can see both strategies in action. This person is an associate consultant at some firm, and the first experience here is due diligence for an M&A deal, for an acquisition of a smaller startup. The second one is operational efficiency improvements, and the third one is an international expansion project. Now, in the first one, it's obviously relevant because it relates to an M&A deal, but you can see here that the way he presents it, he also directly ties it into the deal results because he's saying that it was used to support negotiations for a slightly higher price. In the second one, where he did this competitive analysis, he also points to buzzwords like recurring revenue, diversified customer base that come up in banking as well, and he points out how the CEO used them in negotiations. For the second one, even though it's operational, he links it to the company's operating margins and gives an estimate for how much they would increase as a result of his work. He also points out that shareholders really liked the announcement of this project, and the company's share price increased by 5% following an investor call afterward. So that's how you can present this type of experience in a consulting context. The rest of it is pretty much the same. We have a previous internship, we have education, we have skills and interests. We do list a certification here for one of our modeling courses because from a consulting background, it does help to show that you do have modeling and valuation experience or that you've at least taken the initiative to learn some of it on your own. A few other points before wrapping up here. If you're not in consulting or deal-based role, you don't really have a good shot at private equity roles. See our coverage of private equity recruitment, how to get into private equity, and so on for more on this one. If you're an undergrad or recent grad applying to private equity internships or analyst roles, just use our university student template. It's virtually the same. There are no real differences at that level. The differences really emerge once you have real deal experience to write about. If you're even more experienced, over time, devote less and less space to non-PE roles. After a few years, you may also start to need a second page to your resume that just lists transactions. And I have an example on M&I linked to for this. You can download this PowerPoint file in PDF and click on both these links and get examples of these. We're at the end, so let's do a recap and summary now. Private equity resumes are all about deals, deals, and more deals, or to be more specific, 2 to 3 key deals projects, or client engagements that you write about, how you contributed, how you did something technical that drove it forward or got a certain result for a client, or resulted in an improved process or outcome for a deal. For investment banking, the key challenge is that since the process starts so early, you're going to have to spin pitches and random projects into sounding like deals. You may even have to go back to your internship if necessary. We recommend writing 2 to 3 sub-bullets for each deal and listing the specifics of what you did, so the analysis, the documents you wrote, how you worked with the client's team, something like that first, followed by the results. Did it result in a different presentation of the company? Did it result in more investor interest? Did it result in the team doing more due diligence on additional companies or looking at them in more depth? For consulting, you're going to have to spin operational engagements into sounding more financial than they actually were. You can usually do this by taking what you did and then looking at the broader impact and looking at the company's revenue growth, operating margins, other financials, and seeing how your work might affect those. And then finally, don't be too aggressive with the results that you claim. Yes, you can point to things like finding mistakes, changing the presentation or the company's pitch, finding additional buyers and sellers, but if you start saying that you negotiated something or your work directly made the price go up or down, you can run into trouble very quickly. So I would strongly recommend against that. That's about it for this tutorial. Like I said in the beginning, go to our link, mergersandacquisitions.com/private-equity-resume to get the full templates and the written explanation and tutorial.